Welcome back to the Fullerton College Pre-Press class. This is Ben Hewitt, your professor, and we're going to take one last look today, maybe last, at the pen tool in Photoshop for photo tracing. I'm going to talk a little bit more about how it's used and a little bit more about what type of math is going on in the background. Also this time, I'm sharing an image that I did not take. I did take one like this when I visited from the National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. of a very special plane. Elise, I know you know what this is. Everyone else, this is the Bell X-1 that pilot Chuck Yeager used to break the sound barrier for the very first time. For the first time ever, this plane flew faster than sound travels. It was a exciting flight that remained secret for years, so it was harder for him to get the credit for it when other pilots did other things afterward. But anyways, the reason I'm doing a lot of airplanes is twofold. One, you may have gathered by now in these last 3 weeks that I happen to like them. But the pen tool also does use the same type of curvature math that was used in designing the planes themselves. That's right. Even though we are now using computers to do this click by click by click, the math to create the shapes of these planes as they were first being invented and drafted and designed and built, these were all being done using the same Bezier curve math that the pen tool creates. Therefore, airplanes are the perfect thing to practice tracing with the pen tool because the types of shapes they are work really well with the pen tool. They're both trying to describe the same types of paths. Also, this particular picture in the Air and Space Museum is a great one to demonstrate its capabilities with, although we already saw the blimp get traced out. Because of the complicated background, because of that marble tiled wall with the complicated shadows from the giant trellised window on the right, there is no way in Photoshop that you're ever going to be able to magic wand this background away. Good luck. That background is about as, although it doesn't look it, is about as complicated as you can get for trying to make a background automatically disappear. So this one really does need the pen tool to work. But first, let's take a little bit more look at the pen tool and why it works, or how it works, really. When I was a kid, my parents decided we should have Apple Macintosh computers in our house because my dad was in graphics and my mom didn't necessarily want us to have a gaming computer, and we didn't. This is what passed for fun on those computers. This is a game called Artillery, although this one is the color version on later computers. I'll let it play quietly in the background while I talk about it. This game also uses Bezier curves. This is a game that simulates shooting cannonballs with different amounts of gunpowder propellant, with different types of wind conditions that are that little flag in the middle. I'm only telling you this because this is the context framework to help me understand how the pen tool actually worked myself. Because the angle of the start angle, the angle of incidence you begin with, is similar to how you start out a pen tool point. The amount of powder has to do with how far you drag the handle. So when you see them moving the grammage of gunpowder up and down, really that's dragging that little handle across the screen and up. And in this game, you're trying to blow up the opponent's castle. These are very simple levels without giant hills. Normally there's a parabolic hill in between them. Anyways, this math, this type of path is what you're making with the pen tool over and over and over again, although we could do multiples of these strung together to make a better image. And they're not doing a very good job. Let's go to some other ones on here. Spoilers, he hits him. So this is all about creating a line that starts at the right angle, moves the right, well, I'm calling it distance, but basically uses a certain kind of distance measure to go away from your start point and has another measurement pulling it back to create the complicated curve. These are called Bezier curves, and that's also why it's called the Bezier tool. Any of you Windows users, or even, I guess, game console owners as kids, if they're roughly my age or a little younger, might remember another game called Worms, which is a much more exciting, funny version of this with animated characters and the ability to move around a little. But it's the same game, really. Artillery did it first. Here's another game. This one's a bit more directly useful for you, since you didn't grow up in the 80s playing primitive computer games. This is called the Bezier game. It's at bezier.method.ac, And this is a game online that teaches you how to use the pen tool. Although, fair warning, it doesn't do my method of going back and fixing things. This one wants you to get it right the first time around. Therefore, I'm not very good at it. But in this game, you get to click in these points and it wants you to create the different things. If you hold down Shift, it keeps you straight. Remember to keep your shift straight. Shift constrains your movement to 90 and 45-degree angles, so you always have good shapes. And it shows you how to stretch your lines out. This gets pretty tricky as it goes on. You can watch the demo and do it on your own as well. I do practice with this sometimes. Well, being bored is a privilege when you're a parent, but sometimes when I'm bored and to keep my skills up, I do actually practice in this game. I'm still trying to get good enough to do something the first time around and not just do it roughly and then keep beating it into shape until it looks right. Although that method does work, just not in this game. So this one, you click and drag, click and drag, click and drag, click and drag, ooh, wrong direction, drag and connect. Once you get here, you get to the one where you start using the Alt or Option if you're a Mac user, and that lets you break it away. So you set up your first incident here, but then you also then make the V up to where they're showing you to go. This one's nice because it gives you a guide of how far to move the handles. That will go away as the game progresses. Please give it a try. It's worth your doing. I'm going to stop here because this is where it gets embarrassing and you want to think well of your instructor. So we're not going to show me trying this one.